Week 1, Unit 2, Exercise 1. Emotions are an important link between human nature and culture. The analysis of the place of emotions in human behavior has an extensive history. It starts appropriately with Darwin and his 1872 book, The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals. Darwin believed that many, though not all, emotional expressions in humans are innate. In making his case, Darwin drew on 4 kinds of evidence. He pointed out that some emotional expressions appear in similar form in many non-human animals. Some emotions also appear in very young children before much opportunity for cultural learning has occurred. Moreover, some are expressed in identical ways by humans born blind and thus unable to mimic the appearance of a gesture or expression. Finally, many emotional expressions appear in similar form across all human groups. Smiling is an example of an emotion that offers all 4 of these kinds of evidence. Exercise 2. Different bacterial species need different nutrients. Some prefer sugar and others live off fat. But they not only fight with one another for food and to retain a foothold in the ecosystem. Your gut bugs often want different things than you do, and they're not shy about going after their goals. Your gut bugs have the ability to impact your behavior and mood by altering the neural signals in your vagus nerve. They change taste receptors and produce toxins to make you feel bad when you don't eat the things they want, or release chemical rewards to make you feel good when you do. So the bacteria inside your gut are actually manipulating you. It's important to understand this because it's what makes it so hard to change your diet. The bugs inside you are playing you like a big marionette, trying to force you to give them what they crave. It's a carrot-and-stick approach. Exercise 3. Ideas can be misleading when they are taken out of the big-picture context, or when something is evaluated without reference to its alternatives. Imagine someone said that he is from a place where a loaf of bread costs a nickel. To make that information meaningful, most people would automatically ask about the typical earnings of an individual from that place. However, too often when we receive information, we fail to ask, compared to what? For example, if the news tells us that a new surgical method has led to 3,000 deaths, we jump to the conclusion that the surgical method is dangerous. But dangerous relative to what? Does not having surgery to correct the illness lead to more deaths? What treatment was used previously, and how did patients fare with it? Considering issues in an appropriate context will help you accurately evaluate the pros and cons of a decision. Exercise 4. Because all evidence of the past can only be found in the present, creating a story about the past inevitably implies interpreting this evidence in terms of processes within a certain history of its own. We do so because we experience both the surrounding environment and our own persons to be such processes. As a result, all historical accounts are reconstructions of some sort, and thus likely to change over time. This also means that the study of history cannot offer absolute certainties, but only approximations of a reality that once was. In other words, true historical accounts do not exist. This may sound as if there is endless leeway in the ways the past is viewed. In my opinion, that is not the case. Just as in any other field of science, the major test for historical reconstructions is whether and to what extent they accommodate the existing data in a concise and precise manner. Exercise 5. Sleep is essentially a time management adaptation. Our body's internal clock evolved to keep us out of circulation when there's not much of a living to be made, at 3 a.m., for instance, and awake when there is. Consider the brown bat, perhaps the longest sleeping mammal of them all. It sleeps 20 hours a day and spends the other 4 at dusk hunting mosquitoes and moths. Why only 4 hours at dusk? Because that's when food is plentiful. But also because, as Jerome Siegel, a neuroscientist at UCLA, says, increased waking time would seem to be highly maladaptive for this animal, since it would expend energy and be exposed to predatory birds with better vision and better flight abilities. Siegel argues that our obsession with sleep quality and duration is, in a sense, backward. We spend a third of our life sleeping, which seems so maladaptive. The biggest mistake nature has made, scientists often call it, he told me. Another way of looking at it is that unnecessary wakefulness is a bigger mistake. Exercise 6. Through recent decades, academic archaeologists have been urged to conduct their research and excavations according to hypothesis testing procedures. It has been argued that we should construct our general theories, deduce testable propositions, and prove or disprove them against the sampled data. In fact, the application of this scientific method often ran into difficulties. The data have a tendency to lead to unexpected questions, problems, and issues. Thus, archaeologists claiming to follow hypothesis testing procedures found themselves having to create a fiction. In practice, their work and theoretical conclusions partly developed from the data which they had discovered. In other words, they already knew the data when they decided upon an interpretation. But in presenting their work, they rewrote the script, placing the theory first and claiming to have tested it against data which they discovered, as in an experiment under laboratory conditions. Exercise 7. An entrepreneur can come up with her big idea, and in social enterprise, it can be big across the profit or the social good dimension, or both, and pour her savings and personal credit into it. But this bootstrapping has obvious limits. Depending on the entrepreneur's personal network, friends and family may provide additional investment to help her get up and running, produce early proof of concept, or operate a single location. Other than for the independently wealthy and exceedingly well-connected, though, a successful business will reach a point where it requires outside investment. When this moment arrives will depend on the industry in which a business operates, as well as the entrepreneur's own balance sheet. Whether an entrepreneur needs to find investors to support prototype development, geographic expansion, increasing market share, or some other strategy, seeking scale requires access to capital. Exercise 8. There is no single philosophical method that all philosophers share. In fact, philosophers have long disagreed so deeply about the best or proper way to do philosophy that sometimes they even claim that their own particular philosophical method produces the only real philosophy. The rest is either worthless or belongs to some other discipline. Contemporary philosophers of many kinds, traditional, postmodern, feminist, and others, debate what kind of philosophy is worth doing at all. Similarly, neither do all feminists in general, nor feminist philosophers in particular, agree on a single method. Although consciousness raising is extremely valuable for feminists, even sometimes considered to be the core of feminist method, it is rarely used alone in feminist scholarship. Instead, it is combined with numerous disciplinary approaches. In addition, feminist philosophers have various methodological preferences within philosophical traditions. Exercise 9. Given the dominance of economics in public life, it is no surprise that so many university students, if given the chance, opt to study a little as part of their education. Every year, around 5 million college students in the United States alone graduate with at least one economics course under their belts. A standard introductory course that originated in the United States and is widely known as Econ 101, is now taught throughout the world, with students from China to Chile learning from translations of the very same textbooks used in Chicago and Cambridge, Massachusetts. For all of these students, Econ 101 has become a staple part of a broad education, whether they then head off to become an entrepreneur or doctor, journalist, or political activist. Even for those who never study economics, the language and mindset of Econ 101 so pervades public debate that it shapes the way we all think about the economy, what it is, how it works, and what it is for. Exercise 10. Speaking of marrying creativity and business, I've discovered that a rock star and a brain surgeon have something in common. It's not that either one would be particularly good at the other's craft, and I'm not sure which crossover would produce the more disastrous results, but rather that each one is capable of performing his craft brilliantly and generating huge sums of money without the need for any financial skills. In most businesses, before you can start earning big money, you have to be pretty well schooled in how the business works. For example, if you open up a shoe store, you have to work up a budget, negotiate a lease, bargain for the price of the shoes, and so forth, all before you smell that first foot. But in entertainment, as in surgery, you can soar to the top without any business expertise. Exercise 11. Academic work is by its nature never done. While flexibility of hours is one of the privileges of our work, it can easily translate into working all the time or feeling that one should. Mary Morris Heiberger and Julia Miller-Vick note this paradox. Despite their heavy workloads, academics have more freedom to structure their own time than practically anyone else in the economy. For some people, this is the great advantage of the career path. For others, it is a source of stress. Furthermore, given the time and money required to get a PhD and its uncertain economic returns, it is clear that most of us pursue an academic career for idealistic rather than pragmatic reasons. And while believing in what one does is a key aspect of job satisfaction, idealism can also lead to overwork. The irony is that the more committed we are to our vocation, the more likely it is that we will experience time stress and burnout. Exercise 12. All the branches of science, such as life sciences, botany, zoology, physiology, physics, chemistry, agriculture, and geology, etc., are correlated and interrelated with each other. For example, if we are studying a geology lesson on the rocks and minerals of the earth, then we must be studying the chemical composition, structure, and properties of these rocks and minerals. Similarly, in the study of agriculture, the knowledge of rocks and chemicals is involved. The study of rocks and soil helps in choosing different types of soils for different crops. The knowledge of chemistry helps us in determining different types of manures. Therefore, it is always worthwhile to deal with different branches of science in a unified manner for the benefit of students. It is necessary to bring out correlation of one branch of science with another branch to make science education more meaningful and effective.